All right, so it is finally time to start installing some of the Kerdi board for the shower surround. All my tile supplies came in this morning, so I went and picked up all those items. So ready to start getting some of this Kerdi board installed. Some of the things you want to just do just to make sure everything is prepped and ready as it should be. Just go through again, take a level to all your studs, make sure everything is on line where it needs to be. And then make sure, obviously, you've got all of your previous screws from your previous drywall or shower surround, whatever was there before. Make sure that all the studs are clear so that you don't have anything poking through your membrane when you go to push all that on and get it installed. So I think we are ready. So my plan is to obviously start here at the drywall and wrap it around one continuous piece if I can. I'm going to try to just score the back of the Kerdi board and snap it there at the corner so I don't have a seam there in the corner like you normally would, and it just kind of saves me that time of having that extra seam to fill. So that'll bring me over about 15 inches off that corner. Do a full sheet and then one continuous full sheet over on this valve wall. So everything is pretty straightforward. The only thing that you'll really need, obviously, your Kerdi board. So I've got all of that out here. I'm hoping to do everything with just these 3 sheets. You'll see everything has this nice grid pattern to make everything easy when you're measuring and cutting everything. So those are nice, and it is a heck of a lot lighter than drywall and cement board or anything else that you could use. There's numerous other brands of the foam board out there that's available. The Weedy board, Go board, all that stuff is pretty much the same as far as your foam inner core and then your waterproofing membrane. Obviously, there's different perm ratings on the different brands and that kind of stuff. I've always used the Schluter. I know if you're a Midwesterner, Menards has their own brand. I think it's Prova. So everybody's got their own kind of brand name and color associated, but I tend to go with the orange Schluter. So I've always used it, had good luck with it. I've only really, this is my first time using the Kerdi board. I've always just used the Kerdi membrane. So I'll just do the 1/2 inch drywall all the way around and then go put the membrane on. So I'm hoping to kind of eliminate some of that time. I'm thinking this is going to be a huge time saver. The Kerdi board is pretty salty when it comes to price, but I mean, you get what you pay for with a lot of these things, and if you bid it into your jobs and it saves you time and effort, then I think it's well worth the money. But other things aside from the Kerdi board, obviously, that you'll need are these washers. So just galvanized washers. These will sink into the foam board. You can use, these are the actual Schluter screws. I believe they're just galvanized or some kind of coating on those. You could probably just get away with using galvanized exterior screws as long as they countersink into these washers as they should. And then your Kerdi band. Obviously, these will cover all of your seams with your 2-inch overlap on each piece, and they will cover all of your holes that you've made there with your screws. So you can just cut squares out of that Kerdi band. If you've got the Kerdi membrane, which I do, you could cut 4-inch strips out of that Kerdi membrane. I believe the Kerdi membrane is a little bit thicker than the Kerdi band itself, but I mean down to like the thousandths of an inch or whatever it is thicker. I'm not sure what the mil difference is, but it's probably not that noticeable. But if you get in a pinch and you have extra Kerdi membrane, you can always cut those down and use that as well. So the Kerdi Fix, so this is just their waterproof adhesive. So I'll use that. around the tub flange to get everything leveled out and sealed properly there. That is a super strong adhesive, so even waterproofing down here, once I lay my Ditra on the floor, my uncoupling membrane, I can waterproof that seam as well there at the tub and the floor, so that everything, if you happen to get water down over the tub, everything is waterproof there at that joint as well. So use this around your tub flange, get everything nice and waterproof and tight. Also, speaking on waterproofing, I like to use their mixing valve seals. They only have it in, I'm pretty sure they only have it in the circle. So if you're using other shaped mixing valves, it's not always handy. And if you've got your positive stops and other things like that on the different kinds of seals, the mixing valve seal from Schluter is probably not going to be your best option. I've also got some of the pipe seals. These are the 1/2 inch. These look different than the ones I've used in the past. The other just have been a flat kind of rubber seal that slides over. I've not used these, so I'm not sure if they've changed that design or what that's about. So we'll see what that's about. I may not even use those. I may just use some Kerdi Fix around that tub spout. But we'll kind of play that by ear and see how it goes. So let's get some Kerdi board up and get this shower going. So I'll take you along and show you how we do it. Alright guys, so this is what I was talking about on the that initial run through. So this is the back side of that first piece. This will be the side that joins with that drywall. So this is going to be my inside corner. So I was going to, at least I'm going to try to just score my line at 33 inches to give me this full wall. I'll snap it so that on the front side I don't penetrate that that waterproofing membrane, and that eliminates the need for me having to seal that seam on the front side there in the corner. Sealing the seams isn't a big deal at all, but I mean, if you can eliminate having to do so, then why not? So I'm gonna try to just score and snap this like you would when you're doing drywall, and then see how everything fits. So cuts really nicely. The only difference on this back side, there's no grid obviously to follow. You can kind of see it on the underside, but try to snap it there on that line like so. And that's what I was talking about. It eliminates that seam now. You're not breaking that seam, and it gives you a nice corner. So we'll go slide this in there, get her installed, and hopefully it fits as it should. Okay, so another thing to mention when you're installing your washers and screws and everything into your studs. So this sidewall of the shower sits down nice and flush since there was a larger gap there at the flange. This back wall obviously protrudes out a little bit more. So when we go to put our band in, we'll just fill all that with our Kerdi Fix and our Kerdi band and get that nice and waterproof. This side will be a little bit easier since everything is a little bit more flush. On these, it's I think the spec for install is every 12 inches on center for your stud locations. So it's easier, just poke your wafer in there, the little teeth on there will hold it. Get it nice and secure, and you're off and running. So 12 inches on center on all your studs. Just keep chugging away. This will give me a nice clean seam there in the corner. You'll see I did put in blocking all along here. Obviously that won't be 12 inches on center, but I am going to use some of the additional drywall clips. I don't know if you saw my video on this or my part on this the other day when I was doing my drywall, but I'm going to try these just to keep these two pieces of board attached together. That's not a large span there, so I'm not too worried about it, and I'll have them there in those cross members. So I'm going to keep tacking away. The only thing on this I didn't account for was that seam. Brings everything 1/2 inch this way. So nice thing about the Kerdi board, I can just go in, rip it right down that line, and it'll keep everything nice and tight. So yeah, everything's nice and straight up at the top. We'll get her screwed in and move on to the next one. Okay guys, so we're moving right along. It's been a breeze so far. Everything fits in there really nicely. When you get too tight up there at the top, when your ceiling isn't perfectly level and it's rubbing, it's nice. You can just scribe that, snap it out, push it right in. So this is the clips that I put in, the drywall clips that I showed when I was doing the drywall portion. And I'm just using these since there's not a stud. There's a stud here and here. So right here, I did put the bracing in here. So it's not totally unsupported, but I just put these clips in here to kind of bring everything together and on the same plane and hold these pieces nice and flat. And on these, the clips on here that hold them to your initial piece just go on here. They snap right off below the surface, and it leaves everything nice and clean. So, I mean, I'm a fan of these drywall clips so far. They're pretty handy. This isn't your standard application for them, but I mean, they're working out really well. So just going through, popping these tabs right off, and then we'll be off to the races. So gonna finish up this piece, putting the washers and screws. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough washers. This must have been a partial box, so I may just have to finish up this this wall on Monday. I'm gonna go ahead and get everything set in place, and then I'll just have to put a couple washers up top. So we're chugging right along. This is such a breeze and so much easier than hanging drywall. Just especially in a small bathroom like this, when you're working and getting everything through a 24-inch door, it's almost impossible to get a full sheet of 4x8 drywall in here. You should have seen me struggling with some of these. I was definitely saying some foul words, but anyway, I'm definitely a fan of the Kerdi board so far. Definitely going to be using it again. Works great in applications like these small bathrooms. You're not fighting them to get them in here. So much easier to cut and transport. The only thing you have to really worry about when transporting, you'll see when I was loading them into the trailer, I did put blankets over them, just some surface protection blankets over them so that nothing gets punctured when you are transporting them. Because if, I mean, you get a hole in there, you can't really see a small hole, and especially when you're trying to just fly through the installation and get it done, you're not going to notice that hole until it leaks and causes problems. So that's the only thing. You just got to be extra careful when you're transporting it. Make sure you're not leaning it up against anything sharp, and just kind of eliminate that risk of it getting punctured. But we're going to keep moving along here, get it done, get as much done as we can. I did finally get my fixtures for that, and that thread-on copper pipe, or that thread-on iron pipe, is going to work there, so I don't need to switch any of that out. I may just have to shorten it, but I can do that once we get there. So going to go ahead and finish putting some screws in this one and move on to this last piece and get everything buttoned up for the weekend. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. Got the two end panels done, and then got over here to this final one, and I ran out of the washers. So evidently the box I was working out of was only a partial box. So I am gonna have to go get some more washers over the weekend, but I wanted to at least get everything down around this tub flange and at my corner seams and at my seam here buttoned up, so that I could go ahead and get those waterproofed with some Kerdi band, just so those could cure, so I'm able to start tiling on Monday. So I took some of the washers out of some of these upper screws and just left those proud, so that I remember to put washers back in there, just so I could steal them and use them over here to get this corner secure. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get this tub flange waterproofed, my vertical seams waterproofed, so that I'm at least able to just come in on Monday, finish putting the screws in, and I'll be able to start tiling. So I definitely a big fan of the Kerdi board. It's a heck of a lot easier to work with. Went up super quick. I think I got all 3 of these panels up in about 30-45 minutes maybe. So yeah, now time to start spreading some thin set and get everything waterproofed. So I'm ready to start applying my Kerdi band to my seams around my tub flange and getting all of this stuff waterproofed. So first thing, just some prep work. Mix up your thin set. I'm using the all set. I always use the all set just because it's kind of universal with all the Schluter products. You don't have to kind of guess whether you need to be using the unmodified or modified, that kind of stuff. So I always just use the all set. Mix it up to a good consistency where it's falling off of the trowel, but it's still able to keep a notch. Speaking of the notch, I am using the Schluter Kerdi trowel. You can also use a V-notch trowel, I believe, 1/8 by 1/8 notch. So going to be doing that, and then I'm also going to be applying along the tub flange the Kerdi Fix. So this is the white Kerdi Fix. I believe it comes in gray as well, just like their thin sets. So you'll be applying a liberal amount all the way around this tub flange. As you'll see, the Kerdi board sticks out further than the tub flange on this backside. So don't go easy on it. Make sure you apply enough. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work. So that's why I've got the painter's tape on there, just to keep as much of the excess off of the tub surface as possible, and try to keep it as clean as possible. So that's the plan. We're gonna go, since I ran out of screws on this backside, I'm just going to do the lower seams and my vertical seams that all are screwed off, and then maybe a couple of the screws down here on the lower half or lower third, just to get those done so that I'm able to start tiling on Monday once I get more of the washers. So I've already cut a piece of the Kerdi band to length for my tub flange, so that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to start here at this outside edge, so I cover that seam as well, and work my way all the way around. I'll just embed it with the flat side of the trowel first, go back and notch it, and then I will work it in with just a drywall knife to make sure that everything is seated really well. So that's the plan. Here we go. Okay, Sid, I do want to mention once you've got your thin set on there applied with just the straight side of the trowel, or like I used a drywall knife just to work it in and get it set, on all of your Kerdi fix there on the tub flange, you want to make sure that you work it up into that the seam there between the Kerdi board and the tub flange. So it's always nice just to work it in, make sure everything is sealed really well. And you just use a small putty knife or anything like that just to work it up into that crack. And just to make sure everything is really well embedded. And like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to make sure that it's nice and waterproof. So just keep working it in there. Like I said, on this back side, the Kerdi board sticks out a little bit over the tub flange. Since there wasn't as big a gap, I guess I could have shimmed all of those studs, but it's not that big a deal. When you're tiling everything, you can build that out, that 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or whatever you need to, if it's just on the one wall. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working this in, and then I'll be ready to trowel everything and get this first strip of Kerdi band on here. Alright guys, so when you're laying your Kerdi band in your seams, and specifically for this go around in your corner seams, so on here I only have the one corner seam since I was able to score and snap that one. But this Kerdi band, you can kind of crease it a little bit prior. Obviously that crease doesn't keep, so it's always tough. You just gotta start at the top, and I always just take my drywall knife that I'm working everything in with, and I'll find my middle and put it there in the corner and kind of just work it down so that it sticks and you have a nice crisp corner. Sometimes it can be tough to get that crisp corner in there, and then if you've got a rounded corner, it makes things tricky when you go to lay your tile. So just kind of get it where you want it, work it in there in the corner with your knife or straight edge, whatever you're using. Remember, you try to get a 2-inch overlap on each seam. So you want that middle to ride right down the center. Try to work your way from the center to the end, typically. Once you've got everything pretty well where you want it, you can kind of hold it and work it out. Sometimes it's helpful to have two taping knives. You can kind of hold one in and work it out with the other. But I mean, it's not difficult to work with by any means. So yeah, corners are a little tricky. Like I said, this is an older drywall knife, so if you are using something like this, make sure the corners there. Sometimes on those new knives, those corners are pretty sharp. So this is an older knife, so it's kind of rounded. They're not too sharp, so when you're working it in like this, make sure that corner is not tearing through on your seam and totally defeating of the waterproofing goal that you're trying to achieve there. So just kind of gently work it in. You can see the lines, the trowel lines, and once you see those start to disappear, you know those notches are laying down and everything is embedding as it should. Get everything nice and cleaned up as best you can. You don't want too much excess on there that it creates an issue when you go to lay your tile and everything's laying uneven. But kind of taper your edges. Sometimes if you had like a grout sponge or something on hand, you could take that wet sponge and clean up your edges a little bit. You can see when you're working it out and you're getting a squeeze out there at the end, you know everything's embedding nice and good. So. And then just give it a good once over. Make sure everything is embedded as it should. And there's your corner seam. So nice and crisp. Should make laying the tile much easier. You don't have to deal with rounded corners and everything meeting up nicely. So there's my tub seal. It's not pretty by any means, but like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to keep the water out. So that's all for the Kerdi band seams. Now when you're doing your screw holes, you can just take take your Kerdi band, cut 4" by 4" squares, and do same thing over all of your holes, and should be good to go and watertight. So all right, guys, so as you see, I ran out of my washers, but I did find more. So I've got the Kerdi board all secured and patched up. All my screw holes 12 inches on center. All my corner seam sealed there, and I've got my mixing valve seal and tub spout seal all done. Getting ready for some tile layout. And you'll see everything else is sealed and ready to go. So that's it on the tub surround prep and getting the Kerdi board installed. Highly recommend the Kerdi board or any other of the foam board applications. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to hang drywall in such a small space. And then, I mean, just the time saver itself. Because once you put up your drywall or your cement board, you still have to go back over it with your waterproofing membrane or your, other waterproofing, whether it's a roll-on application, liquid membrane, or what have you. But such a time saver having it all in one, and your back will thank you for not having to carry those drywall sheets and everything. So it was enough for me having to drywall these other 3 small walls and trying to get those larger pieces in this small bathroom. So I highly recommend the Kerdi board and the Schluter products. That's always what I've used in the past. Not that I'm opposed to trying the other brands out there, but just the foam board application is so much easier. So let's get to tiling.